Hi, I'm Andrea Klim, and you are watching Turn to the Stars. And today is March 8th, 2016, and the topic of today's show is going to be the total solar eclipse that is occurring tonight at 9:55 Eastern Standard Time. And I'm also going to be talking about the spring equinox and the lunar eclipse occurring on March 23rd. And I want to show you a chart right away of the total solar eclipse. There it is right on the screen, and you can see it down on the right hand corner. There's a cluster of planetary energy down right about like 4 or 5 o'clock, and you can see that eclipse down there at 18 degrees and 58 minutes in the constellation of Pisces. And there's a lot of cosmic energy that is present at this time. One of the things I want to point out, which is very positive about this changing time, is that there is also this grand trine, or it looks like a pyramid of blue lines you can see in the middle of the chart, all in fire signs, which means that there's a lot of inspiration and reality checks that are going on, and a lot of changes that are present going on all around us as this changeable energy that is inspired by this solar eclipse is present. Solar eclipses show us where the change are going to occur in our identity. And this is a south node eclipse, meaning that there's going to be things from the past that are going to present themselves. And I was having a conversation the other day with my daughter about this, because she also learned how to do charts from being in my daughter. And I told her that I think that this eclipse is what we would call a cosmic clearinghouse, meaning that it's bringing up all the things that we may have buried or chose to bury for a long, long time, and they're extremely emotional and karmic in a form. So it shows what avenues of your life will change, and moving forward, what is going to be those changes. Currently, as I am recording this show at about 12:30 the afternoon before this eclipse, we are in the dark side of the eclipse. After the eclipse comes to its peak at 9:55 tonight, and after that, then we're going to be on the light side of the eclipse, meaning that we're going to be a lot clearer on what this eclipse is about. There is certainly a lot of pressure that is showing up in the chart of this eclipse, and it is what I would say a life-changing event, a major marker of what the next 6 months might look like in your life. Wherever this eclipse occurs in your chart is marking a spot in your life where there will be major experiences, where there'll be things that will be unveiled for you. And one of the next things that I wanted to point out about this eclipse is that it does occur. It does encourage. I'm sorry, I should have said it does encourage us to honor our intuition, our imagination, our dreams, and our sixth sense. It offers you an opportunity to harness vital healing rays of insight through spending extra time in contemplation, meditation, in shamanic journey work, nature, art, or to investigate the mysteries of the unknown. It's the areas it highlights areas of your life most affected, and that will depend on in your chart where this eclipse occurs and how the aspects from the eclipse connect with your planet. And that's a really critical point for if you're looking for more personal information, because how it communicates to other parts of your life will depend on how this eclipse connects with other planetary configurations in your birth chart. This eclipse, though, is, I want to point out, visible from parts of Indonesia, from locations in the Pacific Ocean, and it is, again, in the constellation of Pisces. So if you are a Pisces, if you are a Virgo, if you are a Gemini, if you're a Sagittarius, you will feel the effects of this eclipse the most, meaning that there may be places in your life that you really get some realization of reality, and where maybe you're adapting and you shouldn't be adapting, or maybe you should be adapting. It just depends on what that looks like in your chart. So, and also if you have any other planets in your chart around the degrees of like 16 to probably about 21 degrees in any constellation, they will be highlighted as well over the course of the next 6 months. And the eclipse is, as I said, from a scientific viewpoint, it occurs on a new moon when the sun and the moon, which are luminaries, align and they block the flow of the sun's radiating light. When this happens, the electromagnetic fields of the earth and all living things and beings are reshaped, and there's a sort of a reboot, like when you restart your computer, reboot, and shutting down and then a starting over. We get a chance to rewrite our script or our story through investigations into areas which may be foggy or unclear. So one of the things I would ask you to do at this time is to close your eyes for a moment and imagine this picture, because it's one that this total solar eclipse paints and inspires. Imagine that you're in the presence of a respected teacher, and he or she or he is giving instruction, and they're passing on their knowledge, their wisdom, their spiritual guidance. And this creates a creative pulse of a cycle of inspiration and insight, which is already active in each of the students in the class within you, but is reignited by a gentle and wise guidance. So I wanted to point out the importance of what is happening on this solar eclipse, and it will feel better tomorrow when we are in the light of what these changes are, and we're enlightened by this eclipse and the movement and the passing by of it. I do want to point out the next chart that I have to show you, which is right upon us too, right after this solar eclipse, occurring on March 20th, and that is the chart on the screen you see is the exact picture and the exact time of the spring equinox on March 20th. It occurs at exactly 12:19 a.m. And I played with this chart to find the exact 0 degrees and 0 minutes of the sun moving into the constellation of Aries, which is the marker of the spring equinox. And one of the things that I would say overall about this chart is that it does give the impression that it's going to be a difficult year for the U.S. starting in March. There may be a series of events that produce significant changes and bring out an aggressive response, and also a great concern over pollution. So I wanted to point that out just to kind of overview the influences of the spring equinox. For all of us, it does inspire that spring fever, that feeling like we want to get active, we want to get outside, we want to get busy, we want to get doing things that make us feel better as a person and be with other people. So that is one of the highlights. I wanted to point out also something else about the solar eclipse before I move on to the lunar eclipse. I have a picture and it's written by Albert Einstein that I'm going to put on the screen right now. And my daughter found this online, and I wanted to share this with you because I had a conversation this week with the Dean of Academics in the Derry school system, and I was a little disheartened about it, but he's, and I quoted this, what Albert Einstein said. He said that astrology is a science in itself, and it contains an illuminating body of knowledge. It taught me many things, and I am greatly indebted to it. And the conversation I had this week was one about astrology, and the conversation was, is it a science or is it something that is unproven, which is what I was told. And it is truly a science. It is the natural study of the world that surrounds us, which is very scientific, but also there's a spirit to that science. And that is something that I really feel very strongly about. And the other thing that, and I was taught that by one of my teachers, was actually taught the math that we use to calculate astrology by one of the NASA engineers. So it is a very complex and in-depth study, which is a science. And it is also a spiritual practice. Actually, yesterday, my daughter also found this on Facebook. Lady Gaga said about this solar eclipse occurring tonight. She said on Facebook, she said, it is said that when Shiva leaves the Himalayas, he makes his home in the cremation ground, and he smears his body with the ashes of the dead. Around the time of this eclipse, it would be wise to take a cue from Lord Shiva and take the time to sift through the heavy baggage you may have been carting around for decades, or in some cases lifetimes, and let it go. This is an eclipse that can liberate you from the shackles of old karmic patterns, if you are willing to cut these cords. And Lady Gaga posted this yesterday, so obviously she is in sync and does consult with astrology in her life. And I think I just have a great respect for her. So I wanted to talk about that for a little bit. And I also wanted to talk about, as I begin to continue the show and talk about the lunar eclipse, before I do go into that, I want to talk about something that I am joining up with a very dear associate of mine, Debbie Raymond, and we are doing something called Cosmic and Spiritual DNA Seminar. And this is something that is very informational and very helpful for people at this time to understand what is at the depths of our being, of your being, and what is in your cosmic DNA, and what are the spiritual components attached to it. And I have that. I'm going to put it on my screen right now. It's called Cosmic and Spiritual DNA. That's not the right one there. No, it's Cosmic and Spiritual DNA. There we go. And as you can read here, this seminar is something that provides all participants with the awareness of their cosmic science soul imprints in their DNA and the connection there is with the human spirit. What does this mean? Within each of us, we carry the answers to the patterns of our past, our ancestors, our experiences which are stored in our subconscious from lifetime to lifetime. These experiences influence our present life, and to understand these imprints in our DNA and the connection with our human spirit is an education into understanding yourself and your life, and you'll never forget what you learn during this class. And I just wanted to point out that the information that you will receive is going to answer your lifelong questions. And I am the teacher of the ancient science of astrology in this class, and Debbie Raymond brings the conscious and the enlightenment of the spirit to your awareness. And it is occurring, this class, on March 19th. And if there's information that you'd like to read in regards to this. It is on turntothestars.com, and it is also one of the things that will come to light through this education is something that I call boundaries, and you may call boundaries. When we think of boundaries, we think of perimeters, maybe areas where we need to guard or protect ourselves from things that really are not healthy or good for us. And I was talking to somebody that told me a story about their life just not too long ago, and he mentioned to me that there was a book that he read on boundaries. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because it is a self-help book which really will align with this eclipse that is occurring in Pisces. Pisces is one of those boundaryless signs. If you're a Pisces or have any Pisces energy in your birth chart, you know what I'm talking about. Boundaries are something we really innately do not understand. I have one of these problems. So there's a book I'm going to put on the screen. It's called Boundaries. And there we go. And it's interesting that this book is by Dr. Henry Cloud and Dr. John Townsend. And I think it's really interesting how they took the pencil and drew a line between bound and Aries. So what I think that they are indicating, and I am reading this book at this time, is that Aries pertains to the self. If you put bound, the self, it means that they're teaching us how to bind area of ourselves that we don't understand so that we can set healthy boundaries around ourselves and in our relationships with other people. So that is a book that I would highly recommend to anyone out there who is feeling the pressures and the changes that are associated with this solar eclipse occurring tonight. And I found something online also I want to share with you, and I added to it, and I had shared it on Facebook the other day, but I added to it because I felt that there was more that needed to be said. And I'm going to put that poem on the screen right now, and I called it Healthy Bound Aries for a Healthy Life. And what it says is, live beneath your means, return everything you borrow, stop blaming other people, admit it when you make a mistake, give clothes not worn to charity, do something nice and try not to get caught, listen more, talk less, every day take a 30-minute walk, strive for excellence, not perfection, be on time, if not, call ahead, don't make excuses, don't argue, get organized, be kind to people, let someone cut ahead of you in line, take time to be alone, be humble, realize and accept that life isn't fair, know when to be quiet, get an entire day without criticizing, go an entire day without criticizing anyone. Learn from the past, plan for the future, live in the present, don't sweat the small stuff. And in some ways, it's all small stuff. Believe in something, even if it's just the promise that every day is a new one and a new chance to start over. Understand that you are human and it's okay to make mistakes. Accept responsibility when you are wrong. Apologize when you've made a mistake. Never ever quit. Never stop believing that you are a part of the light of creation and you play a special role in the midst of the whole. You matter. And I added quite a few parts to this because I felt that it was, these were important points that are kind of guidelines or boundaries for healthy living. So I hope those things will be helpful to you as you move through these next 6 months and these changes do manifest in your life and you're able to manage them better. And so the next thing I want to show you is the picture of the lunar eclipse, which I've lost the chart for. Here, I got to find that. The lunar eclipse, here it is, which is occurring on March 23rd, Wednesday, March 23rd, at exactly 8:40 a.m. So this is one that it's not a total lunar eclipse, but it is, you can see it down on the right-hand side of this picture on your screen. At about 4 o'clock, you see the crescent shape of the moon at 3 degrees of Libra, and in opposition to the sun, because lunar eclipses do occur on a full moon. And it is, as I said before, in the constellation of Libra, and inspires the realization and awareness of the benefit of being with others of like-minded souls. Libra is one of those signs which likes to have peace. Lunar eclipses inspire changes in our relationships. And this one is actually what we call a north node, meaning that it is inspiring forward movement in health and well-being to be a huge part of our choices and our decisions when it comes to changes and relationships, and the peace and the harmony that is required for us to be healthy and to live healthy and be healthy and live long lives. And this full moon lunar eclipse shines a bright light on the importance of keeping an open mind and the even greater necessity of having an open heart. Shunryu Suzuki was somebody who came up in my research as I prepared for today's show, who was a Japanese Soto Zen monk and teacher, wrote in his writings called The Zen Mind and Beginner's Mind. He said, in the beginner's mind, there are many possibilities. And this lunar eclipse does mark that sort of influence in our minds, because Libra is an air sign. So it has us thinking and emotionally analyzing what's healthy. And in the beginner's minds, remember, there's many possibilities. When you're starting new, there's many possibilities. So this lunar eclipse opens the door for new possibilities, new directions in our relationships, both with ourselves and others and ourselves. Some advice I found that aligns with the energy influence of this Libran full moon lunar eclipse came from an American astrologer, writer, poet, and musician, and his name was Rob Bresney. And he said, approach every encounter imbued with a freshly invoked wave of love that is as pure as if you're feeling it for the first time. And I thought that was really profound, to approach everything in with a loving approach, but you also must remember that your health and vitality is to also keep good boundaries. When you're on a seesaw, I always think of Libra as a seesaw, and there's two sides to that seesaw. You can't seesaw unless you have two people. So if one person is heavier than the other one, you're out of balance. So how do we balance that seesaw? That's another part of what I might share with you about this eclipse. It's about achieving that sense of peace and balance and harmony. And how do we make that happen? How do we be fair? How do we get justice? How do we find peace in our relationships? How do we find health and well-being? Because on this eclipse, this lunar eclipse on March 23rd, we also have Jupiter in Virgo. In that constellation, it is retrograde until May, so we're going through this internal understanding and processing of breaking things down, analyzing them, and seeing what's healthy also in relationships, and our understanding of ourselves, understanding of other people. There's a lot involved in this particular area. And one thing I want to say is that I am so thankful that we should be, that we all be, and we all should be, for our universe's constant movement and the ever-evolving logarithms of time. And one thing I have to say too about this lunar eclipse on March 23rd, it paints and what it paints and what it inspires is, and here again I'm going to ask you to close your eyes for a moment and imagine this picture. Imagine that there's a group of young people sitting around a campfire, and they're all holding hands, connected with the same values, and they're all kindred spirits, and they're all joining together, holding a big light in their intention for peace, for the future, for humanity, and the passing of love and light as we cross the bridges on our path toward enlightenment. And in any number, whenever you gather a group of people in numbers, there's strength. So strength of a community, strength of a relationship, strength of being together and all holding the same vision. That's really powerful on this lunar eclipse. And again, it's a full moon, so there's going to be a lot of light out at night on March 22nd. You'll probably see the fullest of this full moon, but as I said early in the morning, we do see that this is when this eclipse peaks, and then we are on the other side of it. So I want to say thank you to everyone for watching Turn to the Stars, and until next time, remember, turn to the stars and you'll find your answers there. Take good care. I'll see you next time.